Hey traders, welcome to this week's trade of the week. We'll be looking at silver, but before that, let's get into our US dollar Swiss trade, which we took on 2 weeks ago, and just see how that's running so far. So as you can see, things looking pretty good in terms of profit. We're nicely in the profit at the moment. Trading this little structure here, where we have this impulse off the lows, nice big ABC corrective structure on this 8-hour/daily time frame. And then we moved off into the next leg higher, and from that we entered the trade, coming out of this lower time frame, expanding flat, and got a really nice run out of that to the upside. We're now consolidating in this kind of 93.20 to 92.50 region. We expect that consolidation to continue for kind of the rest of the week in this region here, before taking off to the upside to our full target, sitting at around about 0.095 on the US dollar Swiss. So far so good in that trade. Everything looking pretty good, and profits should continue to come in there. Heading over to silver. I'm going all the way out to the monthlies to give you a full rundown of this trade. As you can see, if we go down to the monthlies, we have a really big impulse off the lows, basically going back all the way to 1941, all the way into the 1st of January 1980, before we started to see a turnaround all the way back down to 1992. So a good 12-year A wave to the downside. It's a big A wave to the downside. Nice choppy B wave thus far, all the way to the upside at the full height at 50, back to those highs back in 1980. And since then, we've been in a pretty strong downtrend, apart from the strong counter rally that we saw following COVID. I believe that little COVID trade was just a kind of ABC, or the C wave of a bigger expanding flat that we look at. And this should turn back to the downside as we move back towards our full target at around about the $3.50 to $4 region. Going into the lower time frames, starting with the dailies, you can see how this little C wave kind of converged into, or completed itself with, I believe, a little bit of a wave failure. It'll move to the upside that really lost momentum. And I believe this wave to the downside is the start of the downside move. And as we see that as the start of a downside move, we then go into this bigger running flat that we've been looking at over the last couple of weeks, this bigger ABC corrective structure. We called for a move up into the 24.50 all the way up to 26 zone. That would be our sell zone. I would really prefer to get up to that 26 zone to turn around, because that gives us more certainty in the turnaround. But what we're seeing on the hourlies is an indicator of what we're seeing of a potential turnaround in silver this week. Just keep a close eye on this structure. We have this impulse off the highs, a big ABC running flat, and a potential turnaround that would see the silver charts heading in a downtrend, moving back towards our full target, as we said, at around about 4. And if we go into the hourlies, we see a little bit of a fractal nature of that move, where we have this kind of choppy top, which we saw in the previous top back going back to the dailies. This kind of choppy top that we saw from kind of August to February, even up to May, the very choppy top. If we go to the hourlies, we can see a fractal of that, where we had this very choppy top, kind of a rising wedge, and a break of that rising wedge with a strong impulse to the downside. So that's our first impulse to the downside. And then we get that same fractal ABC running flat that's starting to get some legs now. Nice little ABCDE expanding triangle in the middle, impulse off the highs, ABCDE, impulse down. Now we're getting our C wave to the upside, kind of targeting around about that 25 region. And then from there, we should start to see some downside towards the end of the week. So we're calling this the trade of the week, but it's more likely to occur probably towards the end of the week, maybe even early next week. And how we'll be trading that is a nice entry order below the lows, and a stop above the highs, the eventual highs at 25, and we'll be trading that to the downside from here, and probably holding this much longer than a couple of weeks, as this silver trade really starts to get some legs. As we said, once we break this 24 region, there's very little in terms of support all the way down, and we'll probably see quite a strong move once these lows are broken. Especially these lows at 21, just to show you what I mean. If we go down towards the 21 zone, look at the volume profile, you can see there's just a massive fall in volume from basically 23 all the way down to 1850. So it'll be a very, very strong move to the downside to come as that volume gives way, as any buyers that are left give way, and we see a big drop. And then eventually that will just remain in a downtrend coming out of, as we said, that bigger ABC corrective structure, this big expanding flat that we have here. And this will eventually break the lows at 11 and then continue. And as you see, that's a little bit of a head and shoulders top that we have, a really big head and shoulders top on the weekly chart, which would indicate much more downside to come once this big neckline is broken at around about the 12 to 13 region. And as we said, our full target to the downside, quite similar to what we're seeing in the head, would see a target of around about $4 to $3.50 on silver, and that's all part of our C wave to the downside, at which point silver becomes a really good buy, and we'll see the next leg higher as the real inflation kicks in, as we've been calling for. So as we've been saying, we're going to get reflation. What we saw in the reflationary trade was silver climbing quite strongly from around about 10 all the way up to 30. Then we're going to get deflation, which is going to see silver cracking down all the way into single digits, and then we're going to get the real inflation, in which instance we'll see silver running from probably $3 to probably triple digits over the next coming years, or decades moving forward. So watching for that. Good looking trade. We just need these lower time frames to confirm, and once these lower time frames confirm, then we know that things are looking pretty good for our silver short and precious metals in general. Cool guys, as you can see, pretty good looking trades on the cards this week, and especially when you look at oil, we may see oil breaking down this week, which would be a big indication that we're heading back towards a deflationary trade, which will obviously hurt silver quite strongly and supports our silver trade. So we'll be keeping a close eye on oil. You can see more of that in our full presentation that we did this weekend, our global macro report. You can find that in our timeline. Cool guys, have a great week, and we'll chat again soon.